When did you realize your perfect sibling wasn't perfect at all? She was the perfect one, the daughter everyone praised, the sister I could never compete with. But one night, I heard what she said when no one was watching. And that's when I realized perfection was just her cover. We grew up in a quiet suburb just outside of Minneapolis, in one of those neighborhoods where everyone waves at each other, the lawns are always trimmed, and no one talks about anything real. My sister Natalie was 2 years older than me, and from the moment she could walk, she was the center of every room. Teachers loved her, church groups adored her, even strangers at the grocery store would stop and compliment her on her posture, her manners, her smile. Meanwhile, I was just the other one. The quiet, clumsy, awkward little sister who never quite measured up. I didn't resent her, not exactly. It was more like I'd accepted the unspoken rules of our house. Natalie shined. I stayed out of the way. Our parents weren't cruel, but they were strict. Everything in our lives had to look good from the outside. My mom's hair was always done. My dad never left the house without a belt and pressed shirt. Family photos were choreographed productions, and dinner conversations were rehearsed like stage plays. If Natalie ever slipped up, which she didn't, there'd be consequences. But as far as anyone knew, she never made mistakes. She was student body president, valedictorian, prom queen. She volunteered at the local shelter and played piano at Sunday services. I watched her from the shadows of our shared room for years, wondering how she did it, how she kept it all together. But everything changed the summer she turned 19. I was 17 and still struggling to pass math. Natalie had just finished her first year at a top-tier college and came home for break. At first, she was the same, smiles, compliments, effortlessly charming. But there was something in her eyes. A kind of restlessness, a tension I'd never noticed before. She started locking the bedroom door when she was inside alone. She took long phone calls late at night, speaking in a hushed tone, pacing barefoot across the carpet while I pretended to sleep. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of her voice. The lock hadn't clicked this time. Her phone was on speaker, and I could hear a man's voice, older, angry, threatening. "You think this is a game?" he snapped. "You think I won't come there?" Natalie whispered, "I've done everything you asked. I need more time." "Time's up, sweetheart," he said, and then the line went dead. She just sat there in silence, staring at the wall, breathing fast. I kept my eyes shut, pretending to sleep, but my heart was pounding. I didn't ask her anything the next day, and she didn't offer, but from that night on, I started watching her differently. I paid attention. That's when I noticed the inconsistencies. The receipts in her purse that didn't match anything she'd told our parents. The small cuts on her fingers she hid under fresh manicures. The time she said she was going to meet friends for brunch and didn't come back until after midnight. Eyes red, clothes rumpled. There were lies tucked inside her perfect smile. I knew it now, and I couldn't unsee it. Then came the day I found the envelope. It was slipped inside her old jewelry box, under a false bottom I didn't even know existed. I wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I told myself. I'd been looking for a bracelet she'd borrowed. But instead, I found a stack of photos, grainy, black and white security footage printouts. Natalie was in every frame, standing in what looked like a storage facility hallway. Talking to the same man whose voice I'd heard that night. His face was always partially turned, but there was something familiar about his silhouette. The timestamps were recent, some only a week old. There was also cash, hundreds, maybe thousands, bundled in neat stacks next to the photos. And a small metal key. No explanation, no note, just a key. That night, I waited until our parents were asleep, and I confronted her. I didn't yell, I didn't accuse, I just held out the key and asked, "What is this, Nat?" Her face went still, not shocked, not scared, just cold. She took the key from my hand, looked me in the eye, and said, "You don't want to know." "But I do," I whispered. "I know you're hiding something. Please just tell me." She sighed and sat down on the edge of her bed, the mattress barely dipping under her weight. "You remember Uncle Joel?" I nodded. Uncle Joel wasn't really our uncle. He was my dad's oldest friend, someone who used to come around during the holidays with loud stories and bear hugs. He hadn't visited in years. "Well," she said, "he wasn't just Dad's friend." There was a long pause. Her eyes flicked to the door. She lowered her voice. "He used to help people with problems, people who couldn't go to the police. And sometimes, when I was younger, I'd hear Dad talking to him late at night. About money, about favors. I thought it was all just weird grown-up stuff. Until I found out the kind of people Joel really worked with." "What kind of people?" I asked. Natalie looked me dead in the eyes. "The kind that don't forgive debts." I didn't understand what that had to do with her. With the man on the phone. With the money in the box. But she stood up then and said something I still haven't forgotten. "Being perfect was never about me," she said. "It was about keeping them out of our house." She didn't explain further. She just packed a small bag and left that night. No note, no goodbye. Our parents thought she'd gone back to campus early. I didn't correct them. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at our front door. no return address. Inside was the metal key. Just the key, no note, no explanation. That's when I started asking real questions. I tried calling Natalie. Her number was disconnected. I emailed her college, they said she hadn't re-enrolled. I even contacted her closest friends, but no one had seen her. It was like she'd vanished. And I didn't tell our parents. I didn't know how. I started visiting local storage units, using the key at every facility I could find within a 30-mile radius. On the 6th try, it worked. The unit was small, cold, there was no furniture, just a single duffel bag in the corner. Inside it were more envelopes, cash, photos, and a list of names. Some I recognized, neighbors, teachers, even our high school principal. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Natalie. This went deeper. She hadn't been protecting herself. She'd been protecting us. From something, or someone, that reached further than I'd ever imagined. And suddenly, the pressure she carried. The cracks I saw that summer, all of it made a twisted kind of sense. But I still don't know the full truth. I still don't know who that man was. I don't know where she is, or why she thought she had to disappear. The key was supposed to be a clue, but it only opened more questions. I never told anyone what I found. Not even now, as I write this. All I know is this: Natalie was never perfect. She was terrified, she was drowning, and we were all too busy admiring her shine to notice she was sinking. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car outside the storage unit for hours, the duffel bag on the passenger seat, the list of names in my lap. I kept reading them over and over again, trying to find some sort of pattern, some connection that would explain why Natalie had this list, why these specific people. Some of them made sense. Our old music teacher, Mr. Devlin, who'd been forced to retire suddenly without explanation. The woman who ran the daycare Natalie volunteered at, who'd vanished mid-summer the year before. But others? They were random. A florist, a substitute math teacher, even a neighbor who'd only lived on our street for a few months. I tried searching the names online, but most turned up nothing. A few were dead. One had been in a car accident just a few weeks prior. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't coincidence. I took the list home, made copies, and hid the original inside a hollowed-out book on my shelf. I never told our parents. What could I even say? Hey Mom, Dad, Natalie might be caught up in something criminal involving a list of possibly dead people and a mystery man who threatens her on the phone. No, they wouldn't believe me. They were still clinging to the image of her, smiling in framed photos, perfect in every memory. I started having dreams about her. She'd be walking ahead of me in a long hallway, turning corners just before I could catch up. Sometimes she'd stop, just for a moment, and look over her shoulder like she knew I was there. Like she wanted to be found but couldn't let herself be. The summer stretched on. I started my senior year in a daze. I barely spoke to anyone. I stopped going to parties, stopped responding to texts. I felt like I was living a double life, one version of me going through the motions at school, and the other combing through documents, news archives, anything I could find on the names from the list. I started visiting libraries in other towns, digging into old newspapers. That's how I found the story about the fire. One of the names on Natalie's list, Lorraine Cates, had been the owner of a small bookstore downtown. There was barely anything about her online. But in an old article from 2002, I found mention of a suspicious fire that had gutted her shop. She was never found, officially presumed dead, but no body ever recovered. I pulled at that thread. Hard, and the more I pulled, the more it unraveled. At least 4 names on the list had similar stories: accidents, disappearances, fires, and sudden relocations. All tied together by one thing: no resolution. No real investigation. Just closure with no closure. I became obsessed. I stopped sleeping. My grades slipped. My parents started worrying, not about Natalie, but about me. I wanted to scream every time they brought her up like she was off at some study abroad program, living her best life in Europe. They'd send her emails, gifts, even Christmas cards, to the same college address that had been vacant since August. It was like they were deliberately pretending. Or maybe they just couldn't handle the truth. Then something happened that made everything worse. A car started showing up near our house. Not every day, just enough to notice. A dark gray sedan, parked 2 blocks down. Same time each evening, around dusk. At first I thought I was imagining it. But one night, I walked past it with my phone out, pretending to text. I caught a glimpse of the driver, a man, mid-40s, square jaw, dark hair. He didn't look at me, just stared ahead, but something about him felt wrong, like he was waiting for something, or someone. The next morning, I found a note slipped under our front door. No envelope, no name, just 3 words, written in black ink: "Stop digging now." I stood there in the hallway, staring at the paper. My stomach sank. I didn't know who sent it. I didn't know how much they knew. But they knew enough to come to our house. I wanted to show it to my parents, but again, what would I say? That I was researching a conspiracy my sister might have been involved in, and now I was being watched? They'd probably take my phone, force me into counseling, tell me to let it go. So I kept the note. I scanned it, compared the handwriting to everything I had from Natalie, old birthday cards, journal entries. It wasn't hers, but that didn't mean it wasn't connected to her. I didn't stop. If anything, I pushed harder. I started tracking the sedan's license plate. A friend in student government helped me access public vehicle registration databases under the guise of a school project. The plate was registered to a shell company based out of Nevada, no name, no phone number. Just a P.O. box. I started to feel like I was drowning in secrets, and none of them were mine. One night in late October, I came home from a school event to find my bedroom door slightly ajar. I always closed it, always. When I stepped inside, the drawer where I kept the copy list was open. The book I used to hide the original was gone. My heart dropped. Nothing else was touched, not my laptop, not my jewelry. Just the list. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at my desk, trying to understand what it meant. Someone had been in my room. Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Which meant I wasn't just close to something. I was already in it. And then, 1 week later, a second package arrived. No return address. Inside was the hollowed out book I'd used. The list was gone, but there was something new. A photo of me, sitting at the library, headphones on, reading. The photo had been taken from outside the glass wall, probably with a zoom lens. On the back, a message was scrawled in the same ink as the first note. This isn't your fight. Walk away. But how could I walk away? Natalie was gone. My parents were in denial. And now someone was stalking me, stealing from me, threatening me. I couldn't stop. Not anymore. That weekend, I went back to the storage unit. I hadn't been there in weeks. I don't know what I expected, maybe more photos, another clue. But when I got there, the lock was different. Cut clean through and replaced. My key no longer worked. I asked the front desk if the unit had been rented to someone new. The guy just blinked at me. That unit's been empty for months, he said. We cleared it out in August. No, I said. I've been inside. I had a key. He frowned. Not possible. We audit everything. No one's had access to that unit in over a year. I showed him a photo of the key. He shook his head. Never seen that style before. I left shaken. Either he was lying, or someone had wiped the record clean. Either way, the trail was growing cold. But there was one more name on the list I hadn't looked into yet, one I'd ignored. Because it hit too close to home. Principal Mathers. He retired the year Natalie graduated. No party, no farewell. Just a vague email announcement about personal matters and a replacement hired within a week. No one talked about it. But Natalie had always been close to him. Too close. He'd written her college recommendation letter. She babysat his kids. At the time, it seemed innocent. I decided to pay him a visit. I didn't tell anyone, just drove to the address listed in an old school directory. It was a quiet neighborhood, not unlike ours. His lawn was overgrown. The mailbox rusted. I knocked. No answer. Just as I was about to leave, the door opened a crack. Can I help you? He asked, voice raspy. Mr. Mathers? I said. I'm Natalie's sister. The door opened wider. He looked thinner, tired, haunted. Natalie, he whispered. You need to leave. Right now. I tried to explain. That I wasn't here to accuse him. That I needed answers. That Natalie had disappeared and left behind more questions than I could carry. But the more I talked, the more afraid he looked. She told me this might happen, he said finally. Told me someone would come. That they'd want to know. Know what? He hesitated, then said something I still replay in my head almost every night. She was never supposed to carry that burden. But she chose to protect all of us. Before I could ask more, a sound startled him, a car door slamming somewhere outside. He shoved a piece of paper into my hand and shut the door without another word. I ran to my car, heart racing, locked the doors, and unfolded the paper. It was an address. Out of state. No name. No instructions. Just an address. I haven't told anyone about it. Not yet. I waited 2 days before deciding what to do with the address. I carried it everywhere, folded in my wallet, hidden behind my school ID, like it was some kind of key. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time someone said Natalie's name, even in passing, I felt my chest tighten. My parents still hadn't noticed anything wrong. They thought the change in me was just college stress. My mom kept saying I'd settle down once applications were done, and my dad started suggesting family vacations, as if a trip to Lake Superior would fix the chasm that had opened up inside our family. They still talked about Natalie like she was out there thriving, too busy to call. One morning, I woke up and the decision was just made. I packed a small bag, left a note saying I was visiting a friend for the weekend, and drove 6 hours straight to the address Mathers had given me. The drive felt endless. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel too tightly. I kept expecting to see that same dark sedan in the rearview mirror, the one that had been watching our house, but it never showed. Just endless stretches of road and too much time to think. The address led to a cabin in the woods. Not isolated, but far enough from town that no one would stumble across it by accident. It looked empty, curtains drawn, no car in the drive. I parked a little ways down the road and approached on foot. Phone in my pocket, heart pounding so loud it made my ears ring. I knocked once, twice, no answer. I was about to leave when I heard it, movement inside. A shadow crossed the window. Then a voice, familiar, cautious. Who is it? I froze. Natalie? Silence. Then, say something only I'd know. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how dry my mouth was. You used to make me fake sleep so you could sneak out. You said the stars were always brighter on the tennis courts. There was a long pause. Then the door unlatched. She looked different, thinner, pale, dark circles under her eyes. But she was alive, very much alive, and she was holding a small pistol. Jesus, I breathed. It's really you. She didn't hug me, didn't cry, just pulled me inside and locked the door behind us. The place smelled like old wood and dust, but it was clean. Sparse. A few books, a folded cot, a kettle on the stove. Nothing personal, nothing that said I live here. Just enough to survive. You shouldn't be here, she said. I needed to know you were okay. I'm not. That shut me up. I stood there, trying to process everything. The girl who used to float through every room with perfect grace was now standing in front of me with cracked lips and a tremble in her hands. She poured water into the kettle, lit the stove, sat across from me. Only then did her shoulders drop a little. I warned you not to dig, she said quietly. They broke into my room. They left a picture of me. They sent notes. Nat. Her eyes flicked up sharply. What? Someone's watching me, and they've been in the house. She swore under her breath, got up, paced the room. I told them I was gone. I gave them everything. Why the hell would they come after you? Because I didn't stop. She paused, then looked at me. Really looked, for the first time. You remind me of myself more than I ever realized. Then tell me the truth. Please. She sat back down and closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was flat. Controlled, like she'd rehearsed this in her head 1,000 times. It started with Joel. You remember him? Yeah, he was part of something. A group. Nothing official, no name, no website, just a network of favors. They helped each other cover things up. Quiet things, ugly things, sometimes illegal, sometimes just deeply inconvenient. Your teacher gets caught with the wrong student? Joel makes it go away. A donor has a messy affair? He smooths it out. There's a price, of course. You become part of the circle. You owe them. And Dad, he owed them. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Dad? I whispered. She nodded. Not money. Silence. Loyalty. And then, eventually, me. What do you mean? I was young, smart, obedient. They saw potential. Joel told Dad they could use me. Train me. Let me listen in on certain meetings, pass messages, build trust. I thought I was helping. I didn't understand what I was part of until it was too late. What were you helping them do? Nat? She looked away. Control people. Bury things. Set traps. Everyone they couldn't control, they removed. Sometimes permanently. And I kept their secrets because I thought I was protecting us. I thought if I played perfect long enough, they'd leave us alone. And the list? That was my insurance. In case I ever needed to disappear. People who knew too much, people they hurt, people they used. Some were victims, some were collaborators, all dangerous. My head was spinning. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I couldn't get you out if you were in. We sat in silence for a long time. The kettle whistled. She poured tea. Her hands still shook slightly. I didn't press her for more. Not then. That night, I slept on the floor. She barely slept at all. At sunrise, she woke me. You need to go, she said. They won't stop. Not until they're sure the list is gone. It is gone. They took it. She gave me a sad smile. They think they took it. That's the difference. I realized then she'd made copies. Maybe even sent them somewhere. Are you going to run again? I always was. She hugged me, finally. Brief but tight. Then she pushed a folded piece of paper into my pocket and whispered, if anything ever happens, burn this. Don't read it, just burn it. Promise me. I promise. I left that morning with more questions than answers. I never saw her again. 2 weeks later, a body was pulled from a river 2 states away. Female. Burned ID. No fingerprints. They called it suicide. Said the note in the coat pocket matched her handwriting. My parents believed it. Held a memorial. Cried. Told me she must have been overwhelmed by school. But I knew better. Because when I opened the folded paper she gave me, against her wishes, it wasn't a goodbye. It was a list of coordinates. Each one, when I looked them up, was tied to something buried, a corruption report, a hushed scandal, a missing person case never solved. Natalie was never the villain. She was the record keeper. And now, I'm the only one left holding the ledger. I didn't touch the coordinates for weeks. I kept the note in a locked box under my bed, hidden beneath spare clothes, terrified that even looking at the numbers too long might somehow alert someone. I walked through life like a ghost, still going to school, still pretending everything was normal, but my thoughts never left that folded paper. I kept seeing her face in dreams, or worse, hearing her voice in the middle of the night. Sometimes I'd wake up thinking she was standing at the foot of my bed, trying to warn me, but I could never make out what she was saying. And then, one morning, I woke up to find our front door wide open. Nothing was stolen, nothing was broken, but my bedroom door had been moved exactly 1 inch. And the box under my bed? Still there, still locked, but the clothes on top had been refolded. Too neatly. That was the final push. I called in sick to school, packed the note and an old disposable phone I'd kept for emergencies, and took a bus out of town. Not to any of the coordinates. Not yet. I needed to find someone who could help me sort through it all. Someone who wasn't tied to my family, or my school, or the people Natalie had been running from. I ended up finding her by accident. Her name was June. She was an investigative journalist who'd left her job 2 years prior after a scandal involving a story that was pulled from publication under pressure from unnamed donors. I remembered her face from the local news, the way she'd refused to apologize even as her reputation was being dismantled on live television. I found an old blog she hadn't updated in months. Through it, I tracked down a P.O. box, and from there, a burner email. I didn't send details, just a single message: "I think I have something you need to see. I can't talk to police. This involves Natalie Hensley." She replied in under an hour. One line: "Where can we meet?" We met in a roadside diner 2 towns over. June was cautious, sharp-eyed, and immediately skeptical. She didn't touch the tea she ordered. She didn't take out her phone. But when I handed her the list of coordinates and the brief summary I'd written about Natalie, Joel, and the storage unit, she stopped blinking. She asked me 3 questions in rapid fire. "Did you send this to anyone else?" "No." "Is your home compromised?" "Probably." "Do you want to stay alive?" I nodded. She rented a car under a different name and drove us 3 hours west, to a small rented cabin she used as a backup workspace. Inside were stacks of files, corkboards with clipped headlines, and photos of people I recognized from Natalie's list, and some I didn't. She'd been following the same shadows I had, from a different angle, for years. That's when I realized something terrifying: Natalie wasn't just one of many caught in this web. She was the center thread holding it together. She wasn't just gathering dirt, June said, pacing as she read over my notes. She was the final witness. And now that she's gone, they think it's over. I told her about the note. About the man watching our house. About Mathers and the cabin. About the picture they left of me at the library. June wasn't surprised. "They don't kill quickly," she said. "They isolate, discredit, intimidate, and when that fails, they erase." I asked her what the coordinates meant. She said we had to check, but slowly. Quietly, one by one. We started with the one nearest to us. It led to a wooded area just off an abandoned fire road. No houses, no cameras, just trees and silence. We dug near the spot, using a collapsible spade June kept in her trunk. An hour in, we hit something: a metal box, rusted and sealed with tape. Inside were 3 Polaroids. All of them showed the same man, middle-aged, expensive suit, shaking hands with a girl who looked uncomfortably young. Natalie was in the background of one of them, barely a blur, but unmistakable. The photos were dated, time-stamped. Blackmail? Evidence? I didn't know, but it was real. June filed them in a plastic folder and labeled it Drop 1. "We won't keep anything in one place," she said. "We divide the findings. If anything happens to me, you take this folder to a man named Marcus. He's in Chicago. He'll know what to do." The next drop was even stranger. Behind a rundown motel near the state border, under a loose tile in the laundry shed, Natalie had left a USB drive. June didn't open it on her own laptop. She drove another 3 hours to a public library and used a portable system she'd rigged to avoid data tracing. The files contained audio, recordings, secret conversations, many with distorted voices. Some weren't even in English. But one was unmistakable. It was Joel. He was speaking to someone referred to only as the Colonel. The recording was rough, but his voice was clear. "She's getting sloppy," Joel said. "You told me she was a safe bet." "She is," the Colonel replied. "But the sister might be a problem. If she finds out." The file cut off. June turned to me. "They knew about you." We went cold after that. Paused everything. June moved me to another safe house, this time in a basement apartment under the name of a friend she trusted. I stayed there for 2 weeks. No phones, no internet, just journals, maps, and silence. And then one night, June didn't come back. She always checked in. Always. When she missed the morning drop, I waited. Told myself maybe the car broke down. Maybe she lost track of time. But by nightfall, I knew something was wrong. A day later, a package arrived. No sender, just a flat brown envelope slipped under the basement door. Inside was a photo of me and June, taken from across the diner the day we met. On the back, in thick black marker: "One more step and we clean the board." I should have run then. Should have burned everything. But something in me, Maybe Natalie's voice, echoing in the back of my mind, said no. Not yet, not when we were this close. I returned to the coordinates. Alone. Each site revealed more pieces, documents, recordings, photos, even a video clip, grainy, flickering, showing a group of people in a darkened room. Faces obscured, chanting something I couldn't quite hear. Natalie was there again, always just on the edge of the frame. Always watching. She wasn't just documenting them. She was infiltrating, and I started to realize that maybe Natalie hadn't run because she was scared. Maybe she'd gone dark because she was executing a plan. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't dead. I stopped believing she was dead the moment I saw the last video file. It was buried in the final coordinate I visited, a crumbling barn in Iowa. Just off a forgotten road, with wild grass waist high and rust-eaten farming equipment strewn across the yard like bones. The key to the barn door had been placed behind a loose plank, exactly where Natalie once told me she used to hide notes from boys in high school. She hadn't left that detail in any document. That clue was for me. Inside, it was empty, almost. No furniture, no lights. Just the creak of beams and the scratch of mice in the walls. But in the far corner, beneath a rotting hay bale, I found it, a small waterproof case. Same type she used at the storage unit. Same brand. Same duct tape cross along the lid. Inside, another USB. A black one. Clean. Labeled only with my name. I waited until I was back at the safe house before opening it. This time I used a burner laptop June had left behind, offline, untraceable. It took a minute to boot up, and then the screen went black, before flickering to life with Natalie's face. She looked straight into the camera. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes tired but sharp. "If you're watching this, it means I failed to keep them away from you," she said. Her voice was steady. "Or maybe I let you too close. Either way, I'm sorry. I never wanted this for you. But if you've come this far, then maybe you're the only one who can finish what I started." She paused, exhaled slowly. "I didn't just collect evidence. I was building something. A map. A way to make sure this network, this sickness, can't keep surviving in the dark. You've probably seen the files. Heard the recordings. But there's one thing you don't know yet, they're scared of exposure. Not death. Not jail. Exposure. Because what they've built depends on no one ever seeing the full picture." She leaned closer. "There is no Colonel. No, Joel. Not anymore. The names change. The cities change. The tactics shift. But the structure? It's always the same. They recruit from schools, law enforcement, judges, anyone with reach. They don't care what you've done, only what you'll help them cover up." She reached off screen and picked up a photo. It wasn't shown, but she held it like it meant everything. "This is what they took from me," she whispered. "And what they'll keep taking from others if you don't stop them." The screen glitched for a moment. Her face froze, distorted. When it returned, she was standing now, pacing. "I don't expect you to trust anyone. Not the press. Not your friends. Maybe not even yourself. But the key, the real key, is the red envelope. You'll find it where we used to hide letters in the old mailbox tree. If you remember that, then you're still my sister. And if it's gone," she stopped. "If it's gone, then you need to run. Because that means they already know you're ahead of them." The video cut out, just like that. No goodbye, no more warnings. I stared at the blank screen for a long time, heart thudding like a war drum. Then I packed a flashlight, gloves, and a box cutter, and I drove 5 hours back home, to the neighborhood where everything had started. To the old tree by the playground that we used to call the mailbox. Because of the hollowed-out space inside one of its low, thick branches. When we were kids, we used to pass each other notes there. Stupid jokes, scribbled secrets. It was still there. I dug through leaves, through wrappers and dirt, my fingers trembling. And I found it. A red envelope, wrapped in plastic. Still dry, still sealed. Inside was a letter, but not from Natalie. It was from my mother. Handwritten. The ink was faded, but still legible. Dated 6 months before Natalie's disappearance. To my daughters, it began, "In case anything ever happens, you deserve the truth about who your father really is." I read the entire thing sitting at the foot of that tree, my back pressed against its trunk, the wind cold against my skin. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't about crime or corruption. It was about silence. About decades of willful ignorance. About knowing Joel was dangerous. About watching Natalie get pulled into his orbit and doing nothing. "Because your father asked me to trust him," she wrote, and I was too afraid to admit I didn't. The letter wasn't a confession. It was a surrender. A way of saying we let this happen and we can't undo it. And at the end, she wrote something that still haunts me. "If Natalie disappears, don't look for her. Because if she's gone, it means she made that choice to keep you safe. And if you go after her, you'll pull everything she built into the light too early, and it will all be for nothing." But it was too late for that now. They already knew I was looking. They knew I'd seen the files. That I'd talked to June. That I'd found the red envelope. The same night I returned home from the tree, the house across the street, the one that had been for sale for 3 months, lit up for the first time. A single light in the upstairs window. Then another, and another. I didn't recognize the car parked in the driveway. Didn't recognize the silhouettes moving through the curtains. But I knew what it meant. They were here, again, and this time, they weren't watching. They were waiting. I didn't sleep that night. I watched that house for hours, barely blinking, every creak of the floorboards in our home making me flinch. I kept the red envelope on my desk, weighed down with a paperweight like some fragile relic. Around 3 a.m., I saw a figure step out onto the porch across the street, tall, broad-shouldered, standing perfectly still with one hand resting on the railing. He didn't look toward my window. He didn't move, he was just present. A threat by simply existing. I pulled the curtains and didn't open them again until dawn. I didn't go to school that day. Or the next. I told my parents I was sick, and they barely asked questions. My mom had gone quiet ever since I brought up Natalie's name over dinner 2 weeks ago, and she snapped that I needed to let it go. She never used to talk like that. I think now she's scared. Maybe she's known for a long time and buried it so deep, she forgot how to process anything else. Or maybe she remembers the letter she wrote and thinks I'll never find it. Either way, I was done trying to talk to them. They were locked in a different reality, one where Natalie was still perfect, and I was the ungrateful one who couldn't move on. I didn't burn the envelope. I didn't destroy the video. I made copies. Several. Hid them in random places. A locker at the train station, a return slot at the library, taped inside the cover of a book I donated to a second-hand store. I didn't even label them. Just numbers. And a warning, if I disappear, go to the news. Start with this. Paranoia became routine. I started walking different routes every day. Switched devices. Bought a prepaid phone under a fake name and used it only once to call Marcus, the contact June had mentioned. I didn't say much, just that I had something he needed to see. He asked one question, was she smiling in the last tape? I told him yes. He sighed and said, then she's still moving. He didn't explain, but he gave me a meeting time, Tuesday, 5 p.m., bus terminal, locker 324. When I arrived, there was no one waiting. Just a small package in the locker. Inside, a phone, already powered on, one app installed, encrypted messenger, one message, from a contact listed only as R. You have more than you know. Stop thinking like a sister. Start thinking like a witness. There was a second message. A location, another storage unit, different state, different code. I left that same night. Told my parents I was staying at a friend's for college prep. They didn't ask for details. Didn't even look up from the TV. The storage unit was in Missouri. Rural, quiet, tucked behind a dilapidated strip mall that hadn't seen real traffic in years. When I entered the code from the message, the door slid open with a heavy groan. It was empty at first glance. But against the far wall was a single item, a taped cardboard box. No label, no markings. Inside it, a black folder marked Echo 4. And a burner phone, still in its packaging. The folder contained pages of typed reports. Surveillance photos. Financial records. But it wasn't just data on Joel or the Colonel. It was about Natalie. Detailed logs of her movements. Meetings. Everything from the age of 15 until the day she disappeared. There were photos of her in airports, coffee shops, even inside our house. Taken from angles that made my blood go cold. They had watched her for years. She hadn't just infiltrated them. She'd been inside the machine. I sat on the concrete floor and flipped through the last few pages. One showed a diagram, a kind of organizational map, linking various people by role, facilitators, fixers, enforcers, assets. Natalie's name was connected to all of them. But her title? Ghost asset, status, neutralized. My hands went numb. Was that what they told their people when someone disappeared? Neutralized? Like she was a threat, not a person. Not a daughter. Not a sister. The burner phone vibrated in my hand. One new message, leave now. No name. No sender. But I listened. I ran. When I got back to the motel, the lock on my door had been scratched. Not broken. Just tested. Someone had tried to get in. I left again. Another state. Another name. I lived like that for weeks. Each time I moved, I checked the folder. Each time I opened it, I found something new, hidden pages tucked in the sleeve, diagrams I'd missed, contact names scribbled lightly in margins. Whoever had compiled it wanted it to unfold slowly, like Natalie had planned every page to land at the right time. Then I found the page I wasn't meant to see. It had a timestamp, last confirmed visual, 06:14, train station, Atlanta. Subject H passed package to Subject M. Subject H was Natalie. Subject M? It was me. They'd seen us. That morning in our hometown, the day I'd found the red envelope, she was there. Watching, maybe even waiting. She hadn't disappeared. She'd gone under. And she'd used me, without permission, maybe, but she'd used me as a handoff. The red envelope wasn't just a backup. It was a message. And the message wasn't let me go. It was you're next. From that moment on, I saw everything differently. The people who passed too close in grocery stores. The car idling 2 blocks away. The librarian who asked my name twice even though I was a regular. Everyone could be a watcher. Or a warning. Then, one night, in a dingy motel just outside Oklahoma City. The power cut out, not just a flicker, a full, sudden blackout. I knew better than to stay. I grabbed my bag and slipped out the back window, running barefoot across gravel, ducking behind dumpsters until I reached the main road. I walked for 2 miles before I saw lights again. At a diner, I used the restroom sink to clean the blood from my feet, ordered a coffee I didn't drink, and flipped open the burner phone. One message had come in during the blackout. No words, just a photo of Natalie, alive, standing in a crowd at a street fair, face partially turned, hair tucked up in a baseball cap. Timestamp, 2 days ago. Location, Santa Fe, New Mexico. The caption read, "She's still moving, so should you." And just like that, the map shifted again. I got to Santa Fe the next night. Didn't check into a hotel, didn't rent a car. Just kept moving. Every coffee shop, every street vendor, every open-air plaza. I scanned faces, watched reflections in glass, listened for voices I hadn't heard in over a year. I didn't even know what I'd say if I saw her. Or if she'd let me get close. I only knew that the photo was real. She was alive, still working the edges of something bigger than either of us ever understood. I found a spot on a rooftop bar overlooking the plaza. Ordered something cheap, pretended to read a book, and waited. For what, I wasn't sure. A message, a mistake, a shadow that moved wrong. And then I saw her. She wasn't trying to hide this time. Just walking, head down, hands in pockets. Same pace she always had when she was thinking hard, fast enough to move, slow enough not to look chased. My heart almost stopped. I stood, took one step forward, and that's when she looked up. Straight at me. She didn't smile, didn't wave, but she didn't look away either. We stared at each other for maybe 5 seconds. A full, suspended breath. Then she disappeared into the crowd. That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen her since. But sometimes, when I open my mailbox, there's a note. Always typed. No return address. Just questions. Do you still have the map? Did you make backups? Are you ready if I fall? And my answers are always the same. Yes, yes, and I don't know. Because the truth is, I'm not a spy. I'm not brave. I'm not my sister. I'm just a girl who asked one question and didn't know when to stop digging. And now? Now I know things I can't unknow. Things I never asked to carry. But I carry them anyway. Because the real story isn't about the perfect sister. It's about what perfection was hiding. And how long it takes before the truth starts to rot from the inside out. So if you're reading this, if you found this post and think it sounds like a movie or a conspiracy theory or some fiction someone cooked up for karma points, I get it. I really do. But look closer. At the gaps in stories you've heard your whole life. At the people who vanish clean, with no trace. At the ones who were too good to be true. Because someone taught them how to shine just bright enough to blind everyone else from the smoke rising behind them. And someone taught the rest of us how to stay quiet. I stopped being quiet. Now I listen for footsteps at night. I scan crowds like it's second nature. And every so often, I still feel like I'm being watched. But maybe that's the point. Maybe they're waiting to see if I'll say too much. So I'll leave it here. No names, no more locations, just this. She's still out there, and I think she's still fighting. And maybe, so am I.